occasions complain that they have no time to read.
Right.
But our role as the disseminators of knowledge is to try and give an overview of a certain topic and hopefully encourage further reading.
Oh, mashallah. Thank you very much. In your research, do you delve into more Arabic resources or English resources?
Definitely more Arabic resources, because the English resources, while there are some very good works out there, they are limited. Whereas in Arabic you've got, you know, the history of the religion of Islam and the theology of the religion of Islam and the jurisprudence of the religion of Islam, all within the original Arabic sources.
Right.
So you have to delve into the Arabic sources. But mind you, I would not deny the fact that there are many excellent Western academic works which have looked at Islamic topics in more depth than some Arabic works have. So you try and take a balance, but overall you're going to take more Arabic sources.
Right. Here's kind of deriving from the same type of question, but out of those books, which ones are your favorites and why do you love them?
Well, that's not the easiest question to answer because all books have a certain flavor to them. But I'd say the books of thinkers are unique. So reading the books of people like Sayyid Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, may Allah bless his soul, or somebody like Shaheed Mutahari, may God bless his soul, or even somebody like Dr. Ali Shariati, may God bless his soul. All of these are thinkers of a particular era, and the way they look at a particular topic is that they dissect it from an angle which is unique. They are philosophers, stroke sociologists, stroke historians, all in one book. And so books of such thinkers I really enjoy reading. Whether the book was written, for example, for a Western audience or for an Eastern audience, you find that it's able to provide a flavor which is unique.
Which is kind of interesting what you mentioned, is because these thinkers you're mentioning, they're all modern day contemporary ones. So it kind of also lets you, maybe if I'm not mistaken, maybe it puts you in their shoes, like, hey, that these people are still living in, or have lived in this current day and age, that you can also follow in their shoes as well.
I think Mandela used to say that I'm not going to tell you what to think, I'm going to tell you how to think. And I think with Sayyid Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr or Shaheed Mutahari or Dr. Ali Shariati, they don't tell you what to think, they tell you how. And I would hope that our generation as well isn't concerned with telling others what to think, but is more concerned of opening the doors of how to think. Because the school of Ahl al-Bayt is a school of expression. It's a school of a master who had 4,000 students graduate from his class, who today are imams of other schools, open-minded, reflection, constant wondering about the signs of God within his holy books. And that is what we need more of, more thinkers within our communities.
Thank you very much. Here's another good one. What period in Islamic history do you find most intriguing? And also, what period in Islamic history do you feel often ignored?
Most intriguing, I would say definitely the first 250, 300 years of the religion of Islam. I find the most intriguing. You know, the early schisms over debates on leadership, then the later development of theological and jurisprudential schools. Working in tandem or sometimes against the dynasties ruling at the time. It's just a fascinating period, the first 300 years. And areas which I feel are neglected are possibly, you know, the areas of the disputes that may have arisen in the period of the Abbasids' last days and the Mongol invasion. I think that's an area which requires a much deeper analysis, without a doubt. You know, the sudden arising of people like Genghis Khan and Holako and the work of people like Nasruddin al-Tusi, Ibn al-Alqami in that period, of how they had to balance what was happening. The period of the Seljuks and the Buyids as well is a period which requires more in-depth analysis. So that particular era, I think, is neglected and needs more discussion.
That's right. I appreciate that. Well, you're a very well-traveled person, and you have seen a variety of communities, I'm sure. Through your observation, you've noticed, I'm sure, more developed communities and less developed communities, and that I mean Islamically versus culturally. What do you think those more developed communities are doing better that the not-so-developed ones should do?
I think we have to understand that culture isn't a bad thing. So if there are some communities which are more cultural, I don't think it's bad. I just think what you need is a balance of religion and culture. and you need culture to have its appropriate place within religion. The more developed communities, I would say, are recognizing more the needs of their people rather than living by their own time. What I mean by that is you'll find some communities whose leaders are more thinking that the way we used to practice something 20 years ago is the way it should be instilled into our people today. Whereas the more developed are the ones who think that, no, hold on, as in, it's a new generation, it's new thinking, therefore it requires a new method of conveying a particular incident or discussing a particular event. So developed for me isn't how grand your mosque is, for example. Developed for me is how much you're in tune with the day-to-day affairs of your community and how much you understand and empathize with what the people of the community are going through in their lives.
Thank you. If somebody wants to become a public speaker like yourself, what advice would you give them on the first few things that one should begin to master in order to be a successful public speaker?
Well, definitely you're going to have to be ready to sacrifice a lot of time reading about the religion. If you're not the type of person who enjoys reading, then you're going to find it very difficult to be a public speaker. Because you need to read, and you not only need to read books of history, but also books of ethics, books of jurisprudence, books of theology, and you're going to have to be very well-rounded in your reading. That takes a lot of hours of your time, but at the end the fruits are unbelievable. So somebody who's ready to sacrifice reading a lot, somebody who's ready to sacrifice traveling a lot, because naturally your work will lead you to different parts of the world, and somebody who also is going to have to be ready to recognize that they're carrying the burden of Ahlul Bayt's message. That's not easy. As in, sometimes people, when they see you sit on the pulpit, they wonder, you know, when he sits on the pulpit, he seems so strict, so rigid. It's as if there's no smile that will come out of his face. But what they don't realize is how heavy the burden is that you're carrying and representing the glorious message of Allah on earth. And so you have to be ready to uphold, you know, a certain amount of responsibility on your shoulders. If you're not ready for these things, then there are other professions, without a doubt, in which you are worshipping Allah as well. But this one requires these areas.
Yeah, I really believe that you should be well-rounded, especially in any facet, because you could come up against certain discussions with people, and they might want to ask you about a verse, and if you don't know anything about tafsir or which tafsir, you won't be able to respond back.
Very true.
Thank you.
True.
I'm sure throughout the course of your years, you run into people whom have criticized you. How do you handle that criticism? And on the flip side, how do you handle popularity and praise?
Well, there are many millions greater than me who have walked on this earth, who have been criticized. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam was cursed on pulpits for years after he died. And I'm not even worthy of the dust that Amir al-Mu'mineen walked on. So who am I? If I get criticized, then so be it. If it's constructive criticism, then, you know, no problem. As in, never have claimed infallibility. So if somebody constructively wants to criticize a certain area, then why not? And if there are others whose criticism isn't so constructive, then at the end of the day, you leave it between them and their Lord, as in they're responsible for everything that comes out from their mouths, and they have to answer for it on the day of judgment. In terms of praise, well, all praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without a doubt. But if somebody does come up to you and say, I thank you for this lecture, then it's always, you know, it definitely inspires you to continue serving Allah. And that's how you should use praise. You use it to provide you with the energy, as if the battery life, to continue serving. To say that if this person got inspired, let me help others come to the path of God. Without a doubt, it's a difficult balance. You know, if you want to be a public speaker, you're going to be criticized by certain individuals. But if you're patient, then you may find those same individuals years later coming back and saying that, you know what, even though they may not admit it to you in your face, but they may admit it to others that we were wrong what we said, as in now we understood what it was that people were inspired by. And at the end of the day, you have to forgive the people in the way you'd want Allah to forgive you.
I definitely consider that a pearl of wisdom, what you just said, you know? Just a little sabr, you never know when somebody might come around.
Definitely.
That's right. There are many of those who wonder who helped you to get to where you are today. And that, I mean, your ustads or teachers or people whom you're indebted to for your initial development.